Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're talking about House of the Dragon episode 7, and what an episode. It was very jam-packed. I don't know how you guys feel about all these things happening in each episode. Like, it's a lot to focus on, but it makes for great TV. I love the tension in this episode. Like, you just didn't know who was gonna do what. It seems like everybody's life was on the line. I didn't know, that one scene that was kind of like a Real Housewives reunion. I didn't understand, like, I thought the king might turn on Alicent. I thought for a second one of Rhaenyra's children was gonna lose an eyeball. Like, it really seemed like anything was possible. And one thing's for sure, the king is alive, and until his dying breath, he's made it very clear that he's Team Rhaenyra. And if anybody has a problem with that, they're gonna get their tongues cut out. So that ending, okay, so when I saw Laenor at the end, I kind of saw it coming because it's been alluded that he's a really great fighter. So I could see him being killed if he's like stabbed in the back or poisoned, but I just didn't see him losing in combat to his like sneaky link for some reason. So it was a great ending and it was so well done. Like, the execution was quite smooth and they definitely planned it. The lead up was quite smart. We see Daemon killing someone of similar build. We don't really know why. And I guess that was the whole point of having witnesses. So there's no doubt. So when they switched the bodies, because you couldn't really identify the body and it was burned to a crisp, you didn't know if it was Laenor, but it's assumed that it's him. And the fact that the body was burned, I mean, that was like sign Targaryen without signing Targaryen. He did make it clear in the last episode that he did want to leave. He felt like there was really nothing left for him to do by Rhaenyra's side. So he kind of stayed out of obligation, but he was kind of done. And we learned in this episode that they did try to have children and they did try to at least give off the appearance. That was their plan. Like, we'll do our duty, but after that, like, y'all can explore your happiness how you want. And I like that conversation between Rhaenyra and Laenor because you could just tell she was looking at him like, I can't kill this man. He is just too chill. And what Laenor says was perfect because he was like, listen, you deserve a husband. And he was kind of hinting like, I'm here to do whatever it is you need me to do, right? Like, a good husband sacrifices, and that's exactly what he did. And again, there was not much he could do by Rhaenyra's side at this point. Like, it's to the point where everybody knows it's a joke. So he's just like, listen, sis, like, we're playing by your playbook. You let me know what you need and I'll do it. And I think I'm so glad that they staged that death because had Rhaenyra killed Laenor, that would have been a disaster. I feel like right now I'm kind of neutral towards all the characters, and I still am. Like, I have no real investment here or there. I don't know how you guys feel, but that would have really pissed me off if he died like that. Also, it just wouldn't have been very realistic because everybody basically knows Rhaenyra's children are not Laenor's. She needs a distraction, right? Like, she needs respect, and she's hoping that marrying Daemon will give her that respect and pretty much distract everyone from the fact that her children are they're not Laenor's. So the episode starts off with the most awkward funeral ever. And I like how the funeral was shot. It's kind of like a calm before the storm. Like, it was very dark and gray, and you could kind of feel the tension in the room, right? Everyone's kind of forced to be there together. Nobody wants to be there. And again, it was really nicely shot because it just feels like icky somehow. And poor Laenor, right? Like, he lost his sister. He lost her dragon. He doesn't know what to do. He's kind of like the shame of a nation at this point because it's like everybody is talking about him and he can't even dispute it as lies. And I don't think at this point he even cares, right? Like, it's really hard for him to be like, no, those are my kids. Like, even his kids, those kids know they're not his. And his parents especially are in turmoil. Like, I think Rhaenys will have a huge change because she was talking to her husband and she's like, listen, you really gonna sacrifice our children so you can be in the history books? And her husband, Lord Corlys, he's so obsessed with the throne, right? Like, he feels like it's their right. He feels like they have as equal a claim to this throne as the Targaryens do. And they make a good match, right? So the Valerians own the sea and the Targaryens own the sky. So as far as he's concerned, he's like, listen, we're basically equal. I don't really care about these dragons. We need to figure it out. And I think Rhaenys, when she saw her son, or the body that she thought was her son, I think her attitude will change a great deal, because up until now she's just kind of done. She's like, you know what, I kind of gave up dreams of the Iron Throne. So we'll see how her character changes. I think it's weird that everyone accepted Aemond taking the dragon, but I think because so much chaos has happened, it was like a small battle in exchange for the war. Because Aemond, he claimed that dragon. He fully deserved the dragon. But again, like, on the night of, he took it the same day as the funeral. So I'm surprised, you know, like, they kind of let it slide like that. But he paid a great price for it. And again, he fully deserves the dragon. And why is Otto Hand of the King? So we see Otto, he has his little pin back, and he's like tapping his pin. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, and the fact that you would restore him to this position doesn't really make any sense. Like, I think the king is kind of delusional in that he thinks through thick and thin, right? Like, he thinks that, okay, Otto, maybe I can't trust him, but in the end, he's going to do his duty, and he's going to back me no matter what. And by virtue of duty, he has to back Rhaenyra. Like, he has some weird loyalty in his brain, but that's just not how these people are operating. We also find out that Larys is ruler of House Strong. So his storyline, I think, will be super interesting. But for now, he's just in the background. He was looking at Alicent like, you know, you owe me. Like, he's there. And he knows he has some power. And I don't think Alicent, or maybe she is strong enough, right? Like, whether or not Alicent is strong enough to deal with Lord Larys is one thing, but Otto definitely is. And the amount of shade being thrown around at this funeral. So before this giant Real Housewives explosion, there was so much shade being thrown around about bloodlines and true blood and this and that. And of course it's aimed at Rhaenyra's kids, but everyone, even Daemon was like, damn, like, everybody really knows. And so two things happened in this episode that really stood out at me. But just as a side note, Alicent's daughter hasn't been properly introduced to us, and she's always kind of off in the corner by herself. I don't know what her storyline will be, but I don't know if she's practicing magic or what. So for the people who read the books, let me know. So first, Daemon and Rhaenyra finally consummated their relationship. And Daemon, like all of us, is shocked that his brother is still alive, right? So Viserys was like, listen, you can come home. Daemon was like, no, thank you. And I think Daemon is in limbo. He doesn't really know what to do with himself. He's a bit like, he's open to suggestions. And I think Rhaenyra is desperate in having Daemon, because at this point, like, all else has failed, right? Like, at this point, she needs him. She needs him for a lot of reasons. First, he's more ruthless, right? He's kind of giving her the how to rule 101. So there are tips and tricks that he can show her that will kind of give her that appearance that she can hold the throne. And I think that she really does like Daemon, because they're kind of talking about, you know, what happened and the funeral. And at one point, Rhaenyra admits, like, hey, it was really nice being wanted. You know, like, I think the agreement she had with Laenor was fine, but she still kind of wanted that affection. Like, she didn't like, you know, she still wanted to be wanted. And I think Daemon read that perfectly. Like, he was very clever in not saying how he felt about Laena, because she asked him, like, did you love her? And he was just like, we were happy enough. And again, I think he senses her weakness and her blind spot. And having him that close to the throne is definitely a bad idea, because I just, like, he's going to be tempted to try something. And again, he's a lot more savvy than Rhaenyra is. And I think Rhaenyra's logic is like, Daemon will agree, because it's better to have a female Targaryen than no Targaryen. But I think Damien's thinking is it's better to have me or no one, period. So again, I think Rhaenyra has that blind spot in terms of this family loyalty. But we'll see, like, maybe Daemon will be loyal, but I just get the sense that he's very, very good at reading a room and giving people what they want. And at this point, they need to produce some type of heir. So he looked like he was doing his duty. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, that was the most awkward scene. There was nothing passionate about it. And, you know, they need a baby that's definitely 100% Targaryen at this point to end all dispute. Because right now there's really nothing to challenge Aegon or Aemond's claim to the throne. Just looking at Rhaenyra's children. The second thing that happened that was really cool was Aemond the Dragon. And I like how this was shot, because first of all, Aemond he's been getting it all episode. None of the kids like him. His own brother doesn't like him. I think Aemond wants to be taken seriously, and he's kind of sick of it. right? Like Aegon is the golden child and Aemond is kind of like in the background. And so he says, okay, this ends today, and the first thing he needs is a dragon. And this whole scene of him with the dragon, like the perspective shift, you know, when you can kind of look down and he's hanging on for dear life, it was so well done. And again, Aemond, he got the dragon, you know, he got Vhagar, and it was not easy, but he deserved it. He took what was his and he claimed it. And so he's happy, he claimed the dragon, and of course he comes home to the beating of his life. And when these little kids are fighting, that was like the most, I don't even know how to describe it. Like they were all just kind of beating on him. And Aemond did show a level of self-control that was quite impressive, because there are a few times where he could have beat he could have had the final blow. And this whole scene with the kids fighting, I didn't know what was going to happen, because I knew Aemond was going to lose an eye. I didn't know how he was going to lose the eye. But I thought one of these other kids was going to die as well. Like I thought maybe he would lose the eye and then somebody else would have to die, like in some type of... So there were a few times where he had the rock and he looked like he wanted to bash in someone's skull, but he kind of stopped himself. And again, the issue is this dragon. And Aemond's like, listen, if you wanted that dragon, you should have got it. And honestly, he tells no lies. Like after that ride, he claimed the dragon. So this little fight with the kids turns into the Real Housewives of Targaryens reunion, and this has to be like the messiest family. Like I don't know who does the writing for the show, but it's so unreal because they're speaking so eloquently, but the things that are happening are so trash. I don't know how to describe it. Like, am I supposed to take this seriously? And so they're in the room and Rhaenyra's like, your kids are trash, and Alicent's like, your kids, my son lost an eye. And again, this scene, like, you didn't know what the king was gonna do. You didn't know if another kid would be sacrificed. And there was a moment where you could tell the king understood that it was Alicent spreading these lies. And I really thought he was going to turn on Alicent at some point, right? And then he was looking at Rhaenyra like, damn, like everybody knows. Because the king knows, but his logic is, listen, we're family. At the end of the day, through thick and thin, through deceit and lies, we have to stick together. And Alicent's like, we absolutely do not have to stick together. And Alicent exposed herself in such a way here, like she had no self-control. And it was a tipping point, because at this point, because at this moment, you kind of know there are two sides. And with the king, like when Alicent asks for an eye, I really thought the king might grant it. You know, like just to make it even. Like that's the thing, you didn't actually know what was going to happen. And it was a very well done scene. It was very messy. I love how Aegon was just standing there. He's like, me, you know, like why did I get dragged into this? And he kind of exposed everyone. He's like, listen, anyone with eyes can see these kids. They are not Laenor's kids, sir. Like, I don't know who needs to hear this. And the king was looking at her kids like I think he's in total denial. Like, again, he has this weird sense of loyalty that he thinks will prevail. But it's just not going to prevail like that. End of the scene when Alicent cuts Rhaenyra, I thought Rhaenyra would bleed out. Again, like, I just felt like anybody could have died in this scene. Like, no character was safe, right? Like, anyone can be killed energy. And I do like that ending just prior to when we transition, because Aemond kind of makes a point. He's like, yeah, I lost an eye, but I got a dragon. And, you know, it was a big price to pay, so... This is when we get to the ending of the episode, like how it's orchestrated so wonderfully. So at this point, Rhaenyra is being stitched up and she's talking to her husband. And that's a good metaphor, because at this point, like, they keep putting band-aids on the situation, but the wound keeps opening up again. Like, she needs to make a move, right? And this is when she starts the process of making that move. And she's not the only one. So after that, it's clear that no one is even pretending to be on the same side. Like, up until this point, they've been kind of cordial. But now they're not even going to pretend to be cordial anymore. Like, everything has snapped. We can't even pretend like nothing bad is happening. But it was a family reunion for Alicent and Otto. Because I think Otto, he didn't understand. His impression of his daughter was that she was always Team Rhaenyra and Team the King. Like, she has this optimism. But, you know, he was looking at her like, damn, I didn't know you had that in you. You know, he's like, yeah, you did shame yourself, and yeah, like, that was a mess, but, like, you know, like, good to know we're on the same team. And Otto was like, listen, I will make it happen no matter what. And now that I know we're working together, this changes everything. We can speed up the process. You know, we got this dragon. Like, the playing field is even, right? So this is a bit dangerous because on the other side, Rhaenyra is also strengthening her house, right? So she approaches Daemon and she's like, listen, we need to get married because there's literally no other way at this point. And I love how Daemon, like, before a kill, he has this cloak and dagger attitude, right? He's sitting there, he's like, okay, listen, if we do it, we gotta do it like this. You gotta be careful with appearances. You can't be letting people talk to you any kind of way. Like, Damien's face throughout that whole Real Housewives, like, fight, his face was just like, damn, like, how much disrespect can you take? You know? And just a side note, like, Sir Christian, how does he still have a job? Like, when Alicent was attacking, when Alicent was like, listen, you need to defend me, he's like, yeah, I'm your protector, but I'm not that insubordinate. So Daemon was like, listen, there's a lot of disrespectful things happening here, but first we gotta give off the appearance. And it starts with removing your husband. And again, like, I like how they orchestrated that because it shows that they're being strategic and not ruthless for no reason. It's like, you need to appear ruthless, but the how is negotiable, right? So Daemon approaches Laenor's man and he's like, listen, you need to help us. And there were a few signs, right? He's like, there has to be witnesses. And now we know why there has to be witnesses, because there can be no doubt that Laenor is dead, and there can be no doubt who did it, right? It has to be, like, clear, and, like, everything has to happen. The fact that it happened in the hall, like Lord Corlys's hall, he was like, how does this happen? You know, the disrespect, the amount of disrespect that has happened in this house is overwhelming. And that was a very, very smooth ending, right? So at this point, you don't know what to think. You see Rhaenyra and Daemon getting married, drinking each other's blood. You know, blood in, blood out, right? Like, at this point, there's no going back. They're in it till the end. And then, boom, you see Laenor is still alive and he's with his man. And that ending, like, when he took off the hoodie was, like, it was so cinematic. And it was very, very, I thought it was spectacular. Apparently, it was a change for the books, but again, it's nice to have that in her back pocket. So it was a really well orchestrated episode until the end. There were a lot of hints that ending was coming, especially on a second watch. But again, like, I appreciated that ending. You guys let me know what you think, and until next time.